In this video, I'll be discussing the realities of eye gouging. There's a lot of myths and bullshit out there around the subject matter, and the purpose of this video is simply to just set the record straight. In order to give you a better visual aid, throughout this video I'll be lacing in footage of something that I filmed back in 2014, and what that was me eye gouging the severed head of a pig that I bought from a butcher's that still had the eyes intact, so that you can see physically what happens when you eye gouge something. Anyway, I used a pig because it's more anatomically correct to that of a person's. So, the first myth that I wanted to discuss is that people think if you eye gouge someone hard enough that you can crush the eyeball in their socket. It's not true. The eyeball feels more like a very hard but also gooey cartilage, and they're designed to withstand a lot of force and not crush under pressure, you know, both literally and figuratively. So here's the footage of that now. So I'm going right now, pushing it right back in. See where my thumb is? I just put it about that far in there and the eyeball's just rising back up to the surface. So anyway, really trying as hard as I can to fucking just gouge and pop this thing, and it's just not letting me. Someone asked me, what if the guy's really super strong, like the guy that plays the Mountain in Game of Thrones from Season 4 and onwards? Couldn't he possess the superhuman strength to pop an eyeball in someone's socket? Even then, I'm still very skeptical about it, because even though he's very strong, obviously, as far as the strength that you can generate in your hands alone, even with all of his body weight going down on it, it's still something that I would really need to see to believe. But even if it was possible, you need to ask yourself, are you that strong to be able to do that? If not, well then you need to take into consideration what you can do with your strengths and as well as your limiting factors. Now, a few years back when I was teaching some eye gouging techniques, one of my students asked me, what if they close their eyelid? Well, unless their eyelid's fucking indestructible, like, I don't know, the skin of Luke Cage, it doesn't matter, because an eyelid is very thin skin, and it's really the force that's being applied to the eye that's going to cause the damage, not so much necessarily you touching the eyeball. Yes, it's going to be more unpleasant for them if you actually can dig your thumb or one of your 5 digits into their eyeball, but even if they close an eyelid, it doesn't matter. I mean, just the force will be enough to cause unpleasantness. Even with my eyelids closed, the force that it takes to still cause extreme unpleasantness is pretty much the same amount of force that you would need if you were to just tap someone on the shoulder to get their attention. To re-answer a question that a student asked me years ago, she asked, can you still cut someone's eyeball or pop it if, say it's a woman that's eye gouging him who has really long nails? Generally speaking, no, unless she files it in such a way where it's like shaped like a spearhead. But it still doesn't mean that you can't visually impair them for life. You can still cause a shit ton of damage, but as far as being able to pop the eyeball, no. When it comes to the pig head, I needed a knife to pop one of those eyeballs. The next myth that's incredibly common, thank you Kill Bill for making this more popular, is that if you cook into someone's eye, you can tear the eyeball from their socket and it'll just be dangling down by, you know, the cord. It's also not true. This is really what it's going to look like. If I do this there, I'm trying my hardest to pop the eye out, and there you go. So imagine this on a human being. Even if you don't pop the eye, this will severely fuck them up. But most people, if they're really eye gouging someone and they move their thumb like this here and actually hook it, this is generally what happens. So if I go on the other side as well, it still puts out a little bit more, but as you can see, I'm trying my hardest to really get it out of its skull, and it's just not happening. Alright, now I mentioned eye gouging techniques to someone a few years back, and as I was doing it, one of them asked, yeah, but if you're eye gouging someone, won't your opponent bring their hands up and try and pull your hands away from their eyes, because, you know, that's where the pain and the danger is? Fucking obviously. I mean, holy shit, what do you think I'm doing here? Teaching an eye gouging technique as if to say, oh yeah, the second you eye gouge them, they'll just fucking, you know, fall over and die, because apparently their eyeballs are a vital organ that they need to live. No. All an eye gouging technique is a piece of an incomplete puzzle, no more, no less. So yes, I am expecting them to bring their hands up and try and pull my hands away. It doesn't matter though, because the second I gouge them, regardless of what it is that they try and follow up with, I will continue the fight until the fight's done. It's just like anything else. If I throw a punch at them and they block it, fine, I'll work around that and try and do something else. If I'm, for whatever reason, got a rear naked choke on someone and if they find their way out of that, fine, I'll do something else, depending on what the situation is. Remember, closest weapon, closest target, and all that other fucking shit. Just look at the 5 principles of physical retaliation. I'll link that shit down below. The other thing is, if they can feel the pain of being eye gouged, then it may put them in a situation where that pain factor can take away their motivation, and they may not want to continue fighting me if they can use tactile sensitivity or not. And there's all this talk that I hear from people, usually that have a background in some traditional martial art, where they say they're gurus or senseis, well, can, like, fight blindfolded and take on, like, 6 guys. They're so highly trained. Here's what I want you to imagine. I'm sure you're familiar with the game Whack the Pinata. Imagine how well you can perform hitting that thing blindfolded versus if I take my thumbs and I stick them as deep as I can into your eye sockets, then immediately after that I then hand you the bat and say, now hit the pinata. Honestly, how well do you think that you would be able to perform by comparison? Let me give you an idea as to how sensitive an eyeball is and how prone to pain they are. I remember back in 2010 I was walking down the road and an insect about the size of a flea flew straight in my eye, and the pain was so excruciating. I was on my knees doing everything I could to try and get it out. I was screaming, my eyes was completely watering, I lost vision. I honestly thought, I didn't know what happened, but I had figured like a bug of some sort flew in my eye. But the pain was so bad, it felt like someone took a needle and held it over a flame and then just stuck it straight in my eye. It was so bad I actually thought I was going to completely lose vision in that eye. Yet I didn't, I still have 100% vision, but man, it was that painful. So if a little tiny insect can cause that much pain, imagine what's going to happen if someone's entire finger or thumb enters your eye socket. It's going to be a very pretty day. Keep in mind, if you eye gouge someone for real, it will cause grievously bodily harm, and you need to have a legitimate reason for being able to do that, and it has to be justifiable. If it's you at a bus stop and there's a guy there that's constantly, annoying you and he's asking for a cigarette or something, or some loose change, whatever it is, but he hasn't threatened you, he hasn't physically assaulted you, but you can tell he's getting a little bit pissed off because he's not taking no for an answer, and if your first response to that is to go, okay, well fuck you, well then yeah, you can get done for that because that's not justifiable. However, if a guy's got a knife and they're trying to kill you and you find yourself in a position where you're able to trap the knife and then with your free hand, then you can take one of their eyes, okay, that's more justifiable, and I can see that going a little bit more in your favor if it should go to court. So just keep these things in mind. It's not the fight itself you need to take into consideration, it's the aftermath as well. And your level of force that you're putting on your attacker must parallel the amount of danger. A few more things to take into consideration. Now, in an extreme circumstance, if you need to inflict maximum damage, I recommend hooking it, because you'll hook it like a bowling ball around their eye socket. It doesn't matter if it's your thumb or your finger, but just keep in mind that, as you saw in the footage, no, their eyeball isn't going to fall out. It'll pop out a little bit, but you'll still be able to maintain a hook on them even if they are trying to rip your hands off. They still may succeed, but if I need to inflict maximum damage on them for whatever reason, I'd rather, hook it than opposed to just sticking a straight finger or thumb into their eye. Another thing to take into consideration is that if you eye gouge someone, their eyes will probably start bleeding. How much blood will depend on the severity of the amount of force that you've applied. The last point that I want to make is that it's one thing to hear me talking about eye gouging and seeing footage of me doing it. It's another thing to experience that for yourself. In simulation training, or I should say when you're simulating eye gouging in self-defense training, what a lot of the times people will do is either they'll push their thumbs into the person's eyebrows, or they'll very lightly push their thumbs over the person's eyes but while their eyelids are shut. Both of those feel very different to doing it in real life, or even just doing it to a severed pig's head. So what I recommend doing is that if you do have a local butcher's that sells, pig's heads or sheep's head or something with eyeballs still intact that is similar to that of a person's, buy that and then just do what I did. Eye gouge it just so you get a feel of, what an eye feels like, how, slippery it can get, the ways that it moves around the eye socket, and all that other disgusting shit that I'm sure would make a vegan go, ew, you fucking monster. Anyway, fuck off, you pansies. Or the other thing is, yeah, if you're already a hunter who, and I'm not condoning hunting in the sense of just hunting for the fuck of killing something, but if you do hunt animals in order to eat them or, something like that, then, yeah, keep the head intact so that you can, eye gouge the severed head. Yeah, I'm not crazy or anything, am I? Anyway, all in all, that concludes this video about realities of eye gouging. So, thank you for watching and stay safe.